Jamaica has begun to feel the force of Hurricane Melissa. The most powerful storm in the country's history has now made landfall. Authorities are telling people to shelter in place after thousands were ordered earlier to evacuate their homes. The Red Cross is warning that 1.5 million people could be affected, more than half the country's population. With winds up to almost 300 kilometres an hour, Melissa is expected to bring catastrophic flooding and landslides as it moves north across the island. Jamaica's Prime Minister says there is no infrastructure in the region that can withstand a storm of this strength. Natricia Duncan is the Caribbean correspondent for the Guardian newspaper. Speaking from the Jamaican capital, Kingston, she told me what it's been like waiting for Melissa to hit.
It has been a long, unnerving wait. And as you could imagine, the tensions, the terror is building as these really terrifying updates are coming in hard and fast. Last night, it was challenging. Lots of songs, winds, rain. It was difficult for me personally to sleep because of those songs and the concerns about my safety and you know my accommodation being compromised. And of course, across the island, we had situations where there was already flooding in the morning. We saw some really heavy flooding in some areas. We saw trees being blown down. Currently, you know, hundreds of thousands of people are without power. I have also lost power in Kingston, but my building has a backup generator. So before it even landed, we were seeing some of those worst case scenarios that were being predicted, which is quite worrying.
And you haven't sought shelter. Is that because you are much further inland?
Yes, so where I'm currently based in Kingston. I am in a fairly good position because one, the storm is quite a distance away from me. It's going diagonally through Jamaica, but I'm still, Kingston has been spared the worst of what will happen. The worst affected areas we're talking about are places like St. Elizabeth, which is quite worrying because just last year during the summer, during Hurricane Beryl, this was one of the areas that was most, devastated and most, had really bore the brunt of Hurricane Beryl. And we had people in that area who were just rebuilding. People are telling us, we just finished fixing our house. We're just now coming to terms with the trauma of Beryl, and now we have Melissa bearing down on us and,
right,
hitting us in possible way.
And as you say, so it seems to be one thing after another, and I'm reading that officials are concerned that not enough people have sought shelter, and you can sort of understand if they're sort of being battered from one disaster to the next, why people might just say, no, I've had enough, I'm stopping here. What are you hearing about why people are so reluctant?
So we spoke to people in Port Royal, which is one of the most vulnerable communities, exposed. In fact, it used to be a massive Caribbean city, and until there was an earthquake in the 1600s, which completely devastated it and sunk most of it. And now it's just a small fishing village. And people there were saying, we have experience with hurricanes. We've been through Gilbert, we've been through Beryl, we know what to do, we can take care of ourselves. And they were also saying when we go to shelters, in the past, we have had problems with our belongings being stolen, we've had problems with women being at risk. And so they're saying that we feel confident and that the best thing to do is to stay put. But this is unprecedented. This is a dangerous storm. And so, the government then had to enforce mandatory evacuation in order to get those people to safety.
All right. Thank you so much for talking us through that, Natricia. Do stay safe. Natricia Duncan in Kingston, Jamaica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's get more on this from Professor Liz Bentley, who's president of the European Meteorological Society and chief executive of Britain's Royal Meteorological Society. Welcome to DW, Liz. Jamaica, of course, no stranger to hurricanes, so how unusual is Melissa?
So this is the most powerful storm that will have made landfall in Jamaica. It's the most powerful storm that we've seen this year in the hurricane season of 2025. And we mentioned a few hurricanes that have hit Jamaica recently. This is much more extreme than those. This is a Category 5. It's the highest category of hurricanes that we classify. And it's really a combination of intense wind speeds, so sustained wind speeds of 175 miles per hour and gusts over 200 miles per hour, but then a combination of heavy rain. So this is a slow moving system that over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours will put down about a metre of rainfall, particularly over the higher ground, and then that will flow down into the towns and villages, into Kingston itself. So it's the impact of sustained winds, exceptionally strong winds, unprecedented wind speeds for Jamaica, and then that heavy rainfall as well, leading to flooding.
We were hearing yesterday of sea temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius plus. How much is that driving this storm's power?
Yeah, a really big factor. So typically temperatures need to be above 27 degrees for hurricanes to really get developed. So when they get to 30 degrees, there's much more heat and energy that can be put into these systems. And the hurricane itself has been sat to the south of Jamaica for a couple of days now as it's turned its direction. It was moving from east to west. Now it's heading back up to the northeast, going to make direct landfall in Jamaica. And while it's been sat over that warm ocean, it's obviously picked up the heat and extra energy, but it's picking up more moisture, so there's more rainfall falling from the system as well. And very slow moving. The system itself is only moving about 2 miles per hour, so it's going to persist both strong winds and heavy rain for a long period of time across Jamaica.
OK. So a Category 5 storm in a region that is used to hurricanes. So how much do we look at this and say, well, this is what you expect in this region? And how much do you look at that and say, well, this is global warming?
Yeah, so we're in the hurricane season, and as you say, this part of the world is not immune to getting hurricanes. And with climate change, with those warmer sea temperatures that we've just mentioned, which is a clear signal of climate change, that just puts more energy into these systems. So climate change isn't leading to more hurricanes, but what it is doing is when we get these hurricanes, they tend to be more intense. So this year alone, we've had 3 Category 5 hurricanes in this hurricane season. And if I put that into context, over the last 100 years, we've probably had about 45 Category 5 hurricanes over that 100-year period. We've had 3 so far this year.
Right. And as far as you can tell, have authorities in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, been taking the threat from climate warming seriously? Is the island now better prepared?
So I think the warnings have been much more clearer and in advance. So we've known this system was likely to affect Jamaica for a few days now. So they've been able to prepare for this. So the warnings have definitely improved. Whether they're more resilient to these storms, it really, is going to be a challenge to see whether there's been significant change to be able to cope with this. But with those warnings, those early warnings in place, and that mandatory warning for people to move to safe areas, I'm hopeful then that there'll be less of an impact on life there, but certainly an impact to businesses and communities with the strong winds and the heavy rainfall.
Good talking to you as ever, Professor Liz Bentley from the Royal Meteorological Society. Thank you so much.